All right. Well, folks, thanks for being here tonight. We are on our Lenten and Holy Week uh, festivities, pretty low tech. So thanks for bearing with us. And so with that, um, as we get started, we're going to have some music that will be playing that you are welcome to sing along to, but you don't need to. You can just listen as well if you would like at a couple of points in the time this evening. And then to finish out, we do end in leaving in silence. And sometimes that's a little weird, but what we can do is just logistically, it can work best just to step out into the corridor until once everybody leaves this space. If anybody wants to stick around and sit in silence, reflect further, you are welcome to do so. But once everybody leaves this space, we can come back in and we can visit or get on with our evenings as we would like to. And just a note on Good Friday. This week kind of started Holy Week with Palm Sunday, and I am not going to go through every kind of timeline point that Holy Week looks at, but starting with Palm Sunday, and then kind of every day past that, something happens with Jesus in Jerusalem with either his disciples or the religious leaders. And so through our morning prayer this week, we've kind of been following along with Jesus and reflecting on his experiences and how those might also give us context and hope and challenge for what we are experiencing today as well. And so with Good Friday, Maundy Thursday, meaning Mandate Thursday, where Jesus commands us to love others as Christ has how he has loved us, is where we have the Last Supper, is where we have foot washing, and when Judas runs away after Jesus calls him out that he would betray him. And so what we are going to do tonight is we're going to pick up in Maundy Thursday with our readings and make our way all the way through the crucifixion. And so as we are going through this, if you would join me in the bolded parts of the liturgy, I will be reading the standard print. So if you would join me on this evening's liturgy for Good Friday. Into the shadows of chaos, the light of the world steps. From the silence of death, the word of God breaks free. For the emptiness of our souls, the bread of the world is broken. Now, reading from Mark 14:17-25.
When the sun was setting, Creator sets free Jesus, and his 12 followers went to the room that had been prepared, and they all sat down around the table. I speak from my heart, he said during the meal. One of you who eats with me now will betray me. Their hearts fell to the ground, and one by one they said to him, I am not the one, am I? It is one of the 12, the one who has just dipped his bread into the bowl with me, he said to all. The true human being must walk the path chosen for him, as written in the sacred teachings, but it will not go well for the one who betrays him. It would be better if he had never been born. During the meal, Creator sets free Jesus took some of the fry bread and gave thanks to the Great Spirit. He then broke it into pieces and gave some to each of his followers. This is my body, he told them. Take it and eat it. He then took a cup of wine, gave thanks to the Great Spirit, and passed the cup to all, who then drank from it. This is my lifeblood of the peace treaty, poured out on behalf of many people, he said to them. I speak from my heart. I will not drink from the fruit of the vine again until the day when I will drink it with you in a fresh and new way as we walk Creator's good road together.
It was at a table that the story began, a people longing for freedom, a meal to prepare them for the journey into the wilderness. It was at a table that the story was retold, a teacher and students wondering what the coming hours would bring, a meal to prepare them for the journey into death. It is at the Lord's table that the story is remembered by people seeking to be faithful, a meal to prepare them for the journey into resurrection. And now a reading from Mark 14:26-50.
They all sang a traditional song and then left to walk to Olive Mountain. All of you will turn away from me, he told them as they walked along. It was written in the sacred teachings, attack the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. But when I return from the world of the dead, I will go on ahead of you to circle of nations, Galilee. Then stands on the rock, Peter spoke out. Even if they all turn away from you, I will not. I speak from my heart, he said back to him. This very night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times, that you even know me. No, stands on the rock, cried out fiercely. Even if I must die with you, I will never turn away. And all the others said the same thing. Creator sets free, Jesus and his followers came to the place called where the olives are crushed, Gethsemane, a garden with many olive trees. Sit here, he told his followers, while I go over there and pray. He then took with him, stands on the rock. He takes over, James, and he shows goodwill, John, to a place not far from the others. There he became deeply troubled and full of sorrow. My heart is full of sorrow to the point of death, he said, to his 3 followers who were with him. Stay here and watch over me. He went a little ways from them, dropped his face to the ground, and prayed that, if possible, he would be spared in this time of suffering. Abba, honored Father, he cried out, nothing is too hard for me. Take this bitter cup of suffering away from me. But I want only your way, not mine. He then returned and found his followers sleeping. One who hears, Simon, he said to stand on the rock, using his family name. Are you asleep? Could you not stay awake with me for even 1 hour? Stay awake and pray so that you will be able to face the fiery trial ahead of you. The human body is weak, but the spirit is strong. Once again, he went from them and prayed the same words. He returned and again found his followers sleeping, for their eyes were heavy, and they had no answer for him. After praying again, he returned a 3rd time and woke them up from their sleep. You still sleep? Have you rested enough? He said to them. Wake up. The time is upon us. The true human being has been betrayed into the hands of the ones with bad hearts. Rise up, we must go. Look, the one who has turned against me is here. Right then, while Creator Sets Free was speaking, a crowd of people stormed into the garden. Speaks well of, Judas, one of the 12, was leading the way. Along with the betrayer came the large crowd, sent from the head holy men and elders of the tribal council, carrying clubs and long knives. The betrayer had given them a sign. Take hold of the one I greet with a kiss and arrest him, for he will be the one. Speaks well of, also known as village man, Iscariot, when he arrived, walked right up to Creator Sets Free. Wisdom keeper, he said, and then kissed him. They moved in and took hold of Creator Sets Free to arrest him. But then one of his followers, who had drawn his long knife from its sheath, struck out and cut off the ear of the servant of the chief holy one. Creator Sets Free then turned to the ones who had come to take him and said, why do you treat me as if I were a thief by coming with clubs and long knives to take me away? Did I not sit with you every day in the sacred lodge? Why did you not take me then? But now the words of the prophets have come true and found their full meaning. Then all his followers left him and ran away.
We convince ourselves that we would not act as Jesus' friends do in this story. But lest we forget, we slip away quietly when asked to stand beside the poor and oppressed. Lest we forget, we are deniers of Jesus when we turn our backs on those the world does not recognize. Lest we forget, we are the greedy who cling to possessions we never use, which could bless others. Lest we forget, we are the comfortable who can sleep through the cries of earth's hungry children. Lest we forget, let us remember who we are and who we can become. Now reading from Mark 14:53 through 65.
They led Jesus away to the high priest, and all the chief priests, the elders, and the scribes gathered together. And Peter had followed him at a distance right into the court of the high priest, and he was sitting with the officers and warming himself at the fire. Now the chief priests and the entire council were trying to obtain testimony against Jesus to put him to death, and they were not finding any. For many people were giving him false testimony against him, and so their testimonies were not consistent. And then some stood up and began to give false testimony against him, saying, we heard him say, I will destroy this temple that was made by hands, and in 3 days I will build another made without hands. And not even in this respect was their testimony consistent. And then the high priest stood up and came forward and questioned Jesus, saying, Do you not offer any answer for what these men are testifying against you? But he kept silent and did not offer any answer. Again, the high priest was questioning him and said to him, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One?" And Jesus said, "I am, and you shall see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven." Tearing his clothes, the high priest said, "What further need do we have of witnesses? You have heard the blasphemy. How does it seem to you?" And they all condemned him as deserving of death. And some began to spit on him and to blindfold him and to beat him with their fists and say to him, "Prophesy." Then the officers took custody of him and slapped him in the face.
Celebrity, politician, entrepreneur, pro athlete. Of all the people you could have been, you chose to become a servant. Power, wealth, divinity. Of all the privileges you might have grasped, you chose to take hold of a cross. New York, Rome, Cairo, Hong Kong. Of all the roads you might have taken, you chose the one running through Jerusalem. Of all the people you might have died for, you did. Amen. And now a reading from Mark 14:66 to 72.
Below the house, outside in the courtyard, one of the servant women of the chief holy man Saul stands on the rock, Peter, warming himself by the fire. She looked closely at him and said, "You were also what Creator sets free, Jesus, from Seed Planter Village, Nazareth." "I don't know him or what you're saying," he said to her. And as he moved away toward the outside of the courtyard, the rooster crowed. The servant woman, seeing him walk away, said to some of the men there, "He is one of them." But again he denied it. After a while, some others who were standing by him said to him, "You must be one of his followers. You talk like someone from the Circle of Nations, Galilee." Stands on the rock, Peter cursed, made a sacred oath, and said, "I do not know this man you are talking about." Right then, a rooster crowed for the second time. Stands on the rock, Peter remembered what Creator sets free, Jesus told him. Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times that you know it. Then stands on the rock, Peter broke down and left.
Coming upon that group of asylum seekers and rough sleepers clustered on the walk, we quicken our pace and cross to the other side as quick as we can, silently putting them at the bottom of that list labeled outsiders. Scrolling through our feed, seeing a mother cry out in anguish at the loss of her child lost from the violence of occupiers, a stray bullet, law enforcement, a treatable disease, or the weight of this world. We simply keep scrolling because it's too much to share her burden. We turn back to escape this world, if only for another minute. The joke is made, not at our expense, but at the expense of someone who cannot speak up because they are too tired or it's not safe. And we quietly smile along with chuckles, finding ourselves complicit, resolving to say something next time. Of all the ways we can say, "I do not know him," we always seem able to learn. This next passage will be paraphrased, and there are responses for us as a group. It was customary during the festival for the governor to release a prisoner, and some were urging Pilate to do so at this time. Now there was a notable rebel in prison with those who had committed murder during the insurrection. His name was Jesus Barabbas. Therefore, the chief priests argued a demonstration to demand, or arranged a demonstration to demand Barabbas. Pilate asked them, "Who do you want me to release to you, Jesus Barabbas or Jesus who is called the Christ?" The demonstration shouted, Barabbas. Pilate responded, "What shall I do with Jesus, who is called the Christ?" The crowd shouted, "Crucify him." Pilate continued, "Are you certain of his guilt?" But the crowd took up the chant, "Crucify him." Again, Pilate spoke, "Shall I crucify your king?" But the demonstrators cried out, "We have no king but Caesar." Then Pilate agreed to release Jesus Barabbas, but Jesus the Christ he handed over to his soldiers for scourging and crucifixion. Now reading from Mark 15:16 through 32.
The soldiers took Creator Sets Free, Jesus, away into the great hall of the governor's lodge, and all the soldiers gathered around him. They wrapped a purple chief blanket around him and twisted together a headdress from a thorn bush and pressed it onto his head. "Honor, honor to the chief of the tribes of wrestles with Creator, Israel," they said, mocking him as they bowed to the ground in front of him. And then they spit on him and beat his head over and over again with a wooden staff. When they were finished putting on their big show, they stripped him of the purple chief blanket and dressed him in his own clothes. The soldiers forced Creator Sets Free, Jesus, to carry a heavy wooden crossbeam on his back. He stumbled under the weight because he was weak from the beating he had endured, too weak to bear the burden. But they continued to march him down the road to the place where they would nail him to the cross. On the way, they came across a man who was just passing by, coming in from the countryside. The man's name was Listening Man, Simon, the father of Man-Father, Alexander, and Red Man, Rufus. The soldiers forced him to carry the heavy crossbeam for Creator Sets Free, Jesus. The cross was an instrument of torture and terror used by the people of iron, the Romans, to strike fear into the hearts of any who dared to rise up against their empire. The victim's hands and feet would be pierced with large iron nails, fastening them to the tree pole. The victims would hang there, sometimes for days, until they were dead. This was one of the most cruel and painful ways to die ever devised by human beings. They brought Creator Sets Free, Jesus, to the place of the skull, Golgotha. There they gave him wine mixed with bitter herbs, but he would not drink it. And then they stripped him of his clothes and nailed him to a wooden tree pole, the cross, and gambled for his clothes by drawing straws to see who would win. It was the third hour of the day when they nailed him to the cross. Carved above his head onto a piece of wood was the accusation against him. Chief of the tribes of wrestles with Creator. They also nailed two thieves to their own crosses, one to his right and the other to his left. And so this gave full meaning to the sacred teachings that said he will be counted among the outlaws. The people passing by wagged their heads and heaped insults on him. "Aha," they laughed out. "So you can destroy the sacred lodge and build it again in 3 days? Can you? Why not come down from that cross and save yourself?" The head holy men, along with the scroll keepers, also mocked him. "He set others free," they said, "but he cannot even set himself free. Let the chosen one, the chief of the tribes of wrestles with Creator, Israel, come down from the cross now, then we will believe." The men on crosses to his left and right also heaped insults upon him.
Ridiculed by his enemies, outcast of his kin, deserted by his friends, God-forsaken. The morning star of creation hangs covered with the grit of the sins of the world. Nailed to the cross, the carpenter of Calvary repairs our brokenness so we might be restored to God's kingdom. Mark 15, 33. When it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. Now, we're reading from Mark 15, 34 through 47.
At the ninth hour, Creator sets free, speaking in his own language, cried out with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, which means, O great Spirit, my Creator, why have you left me alone? Some of the people standing there heard him and said, he is calling on the prophet. Great Spirit is Creator, Elijah, to help him. Someone then ran and soaked a cloth with bitter wine, put it on a staff, and held it to his mouth and said, wait, let us see if Great Spirit is Creator will come and take him down. Then Creator sets free with his dying breath, lifted his voice, and with a loud cry, gave up his spirit. At that very moment in the sacred lodge, the great heavy blanket that hung over the entry to the most holy place was torn from top to bottom. For the first time, the inner chamber, where only the chief holy man could go, was open to all. When the head of soldier of the people of iron, who was standing in front of Creator Sets Free, saw how he died, he said, this man must truly be the Son of the Great Spirit. Watching from a distance were some of the women who had walked the road with him. Among them was Strong Tears, Mary, of the village of Creator's High Lodge, Magdala. Brooding Tears, Mary, the mother of He Takes Charge, James, and the small one and He Increases, Joseph, and the peaceful woman, Solomon. These were some of the women who had served Creator Sets Free during the times when he was at Circle of Nations. There were also many others who had made the journey with him to the village of peace, Jerusalem. The sun would soon set, ending the day of preparation and marking the beginning of the day of resting. He gets more, Joseph, from the tribal village of High Mountain, Arimathea, who was also looking for Creator's good road, was a respected member of the Grand Council. He found the courage to ask Spear of the Great Waters, Pilate, for the body of Creator Sets Free. Spear of the Great Waters was surprised to hear that Creator Sets Free had already died. So he summoned the head soldier and asked how long he had been dead. Once he was assured that Creator Sets Free was truly dead, Spear of the Great Waters released his body so he gets more. He took the dead body down from the cross and wrapped it in a soft blanket in the traditional way. He laid the body of Creator Sets Free in a burial cave, freshly cut from the rock hillside, and then rolled a large stone in front of the cave. Strong Tears of the village of Creator's High Lodge and Brooding Tears and the mother of He Increases were nearby, watching closely where the body of Creator Sets Free had been laid.
Feet that danced through the streets of Jerusalem, welcoming the Messiah, now softly pad the back alleys in search of shadows. Hearts that leapt with joy at the sight of David's true son are thrown out with Golgotha's garbage. Hands that wrapped a newborn son in bright bands of cloth now shroud his broken body and lay him gently, tenderly, softly in death's manger. Where glad hosannas rang out, there are now only the silent weeping heart of God. Let us leave with silence as our companion, so we may hear the whispers of all who have been forgotten except by God. Let us leave with service as our teacher, so we may learn the art of compassion from Jesus, to bring healing and hope to everyone we meet. Let us leave with surprise as our guide, so we may be open to the promises the Spirit speaks in the moment of our utter grief and loss.